the current situation is, if a motorist could park outside a school or a playground and can idle for as long as they like. So they could do it for half an hour, 2 hours, right next to children. And if I, as a parent, come up and ask them to switch their engine off, they don't have to. If the school or a doctor or someone comes up and explains, they still don't have to. Only if an authorised council employee comes to ask them and they refuse, then they can issue a £20 fine. In some places it's £40, £60. But actually, even if after a couple of hours they come up and they see them and say, excuse me, can you switch off? And they switch off, there's no fine. If they come back the next day and they're idling for an hour or 2 hours and an authorised person sees them doing it again, they still have to ask them to switch off. And if they do, then there's no fine. So realistically, you can idle when you want, where you want, for as long as you want. And as long as you switch off when asked by an authorised person, you'll never be fined. So people still idle, and you see it all the time outside our schools. So, the simple one is simply, well, firstly, there has to be a time limit to how long someone can idle for. How long does it take you to turn your engine off once you're parked? For me, 5-10 seconds, really. So I believe there should be a maximum idling time, and that should be in law. And then we should actually have the appropriate enforcement. Not we have to ask you every single time. It should be simply, you see someone idling, you take the registration details, and actually that's now in the database. You've given them the information around air pollution, around climate change, around the harm it's doing to them and all the children around them and all the people around them, and you tell them if you do it again, you will be fined. If they do it again, they get a fine. That's it. Make it a significant fine, £100. That way they're not going to do it again. If they do it again, they get another fine. And actually, you were warned, you got the information. If you now choose to break the law repeatedly, you will be fined repeatedly until you stop doing it. And that's a very simple solution. And I believe that something like that would actually solve this problem. So all these schools, all these nurseries, all these GP surgeries, all these hospitals, all these playgrounds, where you see people idling outside people's homes, outside the supermarket, just, let's just stop that. Let's do our lungs a favour, do our children's lungs a favour. And actually, when we talk about climate change, actually that's a lot of fuel being burnt, a lot of CO2 going into the world unnecessarily. I mean, these vehicles aren't even driving. They're just stationary while someone's charging their phone or doing their makeup or setting their sat-nav or reading a book or having a sleep. Believe it or not, people actually enjoy the vibrations of the car. And so they turn it on and they sleep for an hour. We've seen that. I have people sending me videos now
saying
saying
like a very expensive way to have a sleep.
a very expensive way, but usually it's someone else's money. It's the business van or the business truck, and they're there, and for whatever reason they're just doing that. So
and
that
actually,
really stop.
Unfortunately, with some of these things, you need that force of law to change people's behaviour.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if people know that they're going to get a whacking great big fine, you're just going to stop doing that, and then that's going to become part of how you drive, how you park.
And I think if it's important enough, then we should do that. It's kind of strange because obviously sometimes it's the cost is for an individual, and sometimes, but mostly, often it's the cost is for the company, the business. It's a work van, so then it's the employer actually then having to say to their staff, don't idle. For someone outside of a school, then for many years it's been parents talking to other parents, teachers at schools trying to encourage other parents not to, or even the children making, penalty fare notices and going outside and putting them onto other parents' cars and embarrassing them to stop idling. It's wonderful that it's done all this. There's some great campaigns out there, in terms of action against idling, idling action, to name a few, but, after all these years, it's not solved the problem. So I do think the awareness part is done now. Let's move on and actually just nip it in the bud and just simply say, if you're idling, we'll give you a warning. If you idle any more than that, we'll give you a fine. And I think very quickly we'd find out people stop idling.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David.
My pleasure.